Picture this. Deep space, somewhere in the Kithra system, where a massive research station is spinning slowly around a dying red giant star. This isn't just any star. This thing is in its death throes, swelling up like a balloon and throwing off energy storms that could turn your brain to soup. And right there, way too close for comfort, is a space station packed with 200 of the galaxy's brightest minds. These aren't humans, by the way. These are the Kithra, and they're about as different from us as you can imagine. Think living crystals, all delicate and shimmery, evolved on a world with gravity so light you could jump over buildings. They're brilliant researchers, the kind who spend their whole lives studying the mysteries of dying stars from what they thought was a safe distance. Spoiler alert, it wasn't safe. The station starts shaking. Not the gentle vibration you might feel on Earth during a small earthquake, but the kind of violent trembling that means something very, very bad is about to happen. The red giant below them is having what scientists politely call gravitational fluctuations, which is basically space speak for this star is having a tantrum and everything nearby is about to get crushed. Alarms are blaring throughout the station. The Kithra researchers are scrambling, their crystalline forms catching the emergency lights as they try to figure out what's going wrong. Their computers are spitting out numbers that don't make sense, readings that suggest their carefully calculated orbit is falling apart. They run the math once, twice, 3 times, hoping they made a mistake somewhere. They didn't. The station is dying. Their orbit is decaying, which means they're slowly but surely spiraling down toward that bloated red giant. They got maybe 18 hours before the gravitational forces tear their station apart like tissue paper, and maybe 24 before they take a very hot, very final dive into a star that's busy having the worst day of its billion-year life. So they do what anyone would do in that situation. They send out a distress call. Not just any distress call, but the kind that goes out on every emergency frequency in the galaxy, screaming through subspace with enough power to wake up sleeping civilizations 3 sectors away. The message is simple and desperate. Help us, please. Anyone. The signal bounces from relay station to relay station, racing across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. It reaches the homeworlds of every major species in the Galactic Council. We're talking about civilizations that have been around for millions of years, species that have mastered technology we can barely dream of, being so advanced they figure out how to live in gas clouds and convert pure energy into matter. The silicon-based Vorthak received the signal first. These guys are living rocks, basically evolved from the mineral deposits of dead worlds, and they're tough as nails. They look at the situation, run it through their quantum computers, and come back with a clear answer: impossible. The electromagnetic storms around that dying red giant would turn their silicon-based electronics into expensive sand. Pass. The Ethereals of Proxima 7 get the message next. These beings are made of living gas, floating through space like cosmic jellyfish, and they've survived everything the universe has thrown at them for eons. They take one look at the gravitational anomalies around that red giant and basically laugh. Well, as much as a gas being can laugh. Their response translates roughly to, "You want us to fly into that? We'd rather try to hug a black hole." One by one, every major species in the galaxy gets that distress call. The plant-like Verdani, who've been peacefully photosynthesizing on garden worlds for millions of years. The machine intelligence collective known as the Nexus, who've solved every computational problem in recorded history. The aquatic deep waters, who live in the crushing depth of ocean worlds and think vacuum is just empty space to swim through. Every single one of them runs the numbers. Every single one comes to the same conclusion. The Galactic Council holds an emergency session that lasts exactly 17 minutes. The math is brutal and clear. Rescuing those researchers would mean flying through electromagnetic storms intense enough to fry any ship's electronics, navigating gravitational anomalies that have already turned 3 automated rescue probes into scattered atoms, and doing it all with a countdown timer that's measured in hours, not days. It's a suicide mission, plain and simple. No rational species would sacrifice their own people for strangers, especially when the odds of success are essentially zero. The Council's official response is diplomatic and regretful, but the message is clear. Sorry, but you're on your own. But here's where things get interesting, because there's one species that didn't get the memo about being rational. There's one species that looks at impossible odds and thinks, challenge accepted. There's one species stupid enough, crazy enough, stubborn enough to hear suicide mission and start warming up their engines. And that species just happens to call a little blue-green death world home. Picture the outer rim territories, the absolute edge of known space where most civilized species wouldn't dare to venture. This isn't the nice, comfortable part of the galaxy where everything's mapped out and there are rest stops every few light years. No, this is a cosmic equivalent of the Wild West, where entire solar systems sit unexplored and asteroid belts hide enough precious metals to buy a small planet. Captain Rebecca Hayes of the UES Defiant has been out here for 3 months, doing the kind of work that keeps human civilization running. Mining surveys. It's not glamorous work. Her ship slowly moves from asteroid to asteroid, scanning for rare earth elements, checking radiation levels, and basically making sure that when the big mining corporations show up later, they know exactly where to dig. It's routine, methodical, and honestly pretty boring most of the time. The Defiant isn't a warship or some sleek explorer vessel you see in the movies. She's a working ship, built tough and practical, with extra shielding for asteroid fields and cargo holds that can be converted for different missions. Her crew of 32 includes miners, engineers, and survey specialists, the kind of people who spent their whole careers in the dark spaces between stars. Hayes herself is exactly the kind of person you'd expect to be out here. She's been in space for 15 years, worked her way up from junior mining tech to ship captain, and she's seen just about everything the universe can throw at you. Asteroid storms, solar flares, equipment failures in the middle of nowhere, the works. There's a reason humans send people like her to the edge of known space. She doesn't panic when things go sideways. So when Communications Officer Thompson gets that distress call, for days after it was first sent, Hayes is in her ready room reviewing geological surveys of a promising nickel iron asteroid. Thompson's voice comes through the intercom with that particular tone that means something important just happened. Captain, you need to hear this. Hayes makes her way to the bridge, where Thompson has already pulled up the message on the main screen. The bridge crew, all 12 of them who are currently on duty, gather around as Thompson plays the transmission. It's not in any human language, of course, but the universal translators do their job, converting the desperate alien voices into words they can understand. This is Kithra Research Station Omega-7. Critical system failure. Orbital decay imminent. 200 souls on board. Please, anyone who received this message, we need immediate evacuation. Our position is... And then coordinates that put them right in the middle of a stellar graveyard, orbiting a dying red giant that's throwing off enough radiation to kill most known life forms. Thompson plays it again, and you can see the crew doing the math in their heads. It's been 4 days since this was sent, which means those researchers have maybe 14 hours left, probably less. The coordinates put them 3 days away at maximum burn, assuming they left right now and pushed their engines past safety limits. The bridge goes completely silent. Not the comfortable quiet you get when everyone's just doing their jobs, but that heavy silence that happens when everybody's thinking the same impossible thing. Hayes looks around at her crew and sees it in their faces. Chief Engineer Williams is already pulling up engine specifications on his tablet. Navigator Chin is calculating jump routes. Medical Officer Rodriguez is checking their emergency medical supplies. Hayes doesn't need to ask what they're thinking. She's been in space long enough to recognize that particular expression humans get when they're about to do something completely insane for all the right reasons. It's the same look their ancestors had when they decided to sail across unknown oceans, or climb impossible mountains, or strap themselves to rockets and shoot for the stars despite having a survival rate that would make most species file a formal complaint with the universe. Thompson, Hayes says quietly, send a message to Captain James Parker on the Persistence. Tell him we're forwarding him something he needs to hear. The Persistence is a cargo hauler working the same sector, commanded by a guy Hayes has known for 8 years. James Parker is a kind of captain who once flew medical supplies through a solar storm because a colony world hospital was running out of antibiotics. If anyone's going to understand what they're thinking, it's him. Also contact Captain Rachel Moore on Endurance, Hayes adds. The Endurance is a survey ship like theirs, currently mapping dead systems about 2 days away. Rachel's crew specializes in dangerous environments, the kind of places where one wrong move means everybody dies horribly. Within 20 minutes, both captains are on secure channels, and Hayes can tell from their voices that they've already made the same decision she has. There's no grand speech, no dramatic moment where someone has to convince anyone else. Just 3 human ship captains looking at an impossible situation and thinking, well, somebody's got to try. James Parker sums it up perfectly. The whole galaxy says it can't be done, right? Sounds like a job for humans. Because here's the thing about humans that the rest of the galaxy doesn't quite understand. Impossible isn't a wall for us. It's just another word for Tuesday. The 3 human ships form up at the edge of the Kithra system, and immediately every sensor on every bridge starts screaming warnings. This isn't like flying through a normal solar system where you've got predictable orbits and maybe some asteroid belts to navigate around. This is flying into what amounts to cosmic, hell having a really bad day. The red giant at the center of the system is dying, and when stars die, they don't go quietly. This thing is throwing off electromagnetic pulses that would scramble the nervous systems of most galactic species instantly. We're talking about energy discharges so intense they create their own weather patterns in space. Imagine the worst thunderstorm you've ever seen, then multiply it by about 1 billion, and spread it across millions of cubic kilometers. Captain Hayes stares at her sensor readouts and has to blink twice to make sure she's reading them correctly. The radiation levels alone should have killed every living thing in this system years ago. The electromagnetic interference is so bad that their long-range communications cut out completely the moment they cross into the system's outer boundary. From here on out, they're on their own. The Galactic Council wasn't kidding when they called this a suicide mission. Most alien species, even the tough ones like the Vorthack, have nervous systems that run on delicate bioelectrical processes. Hit them with this kind of electromagnetic chaos, and their brains would literally fry like eggs in a pan. The gas-dwelling ethereals would be torn apart by the gravitational distortions. Even the machine intelligences would find their quantum processors scrambled into expensive junk. But humans evolved on Earth. And Earth spent about 4 billion years perfecting the art trying to kill everything that lived on it. Our planet hit us with everything it had. Ice ages that froze the ocean solid. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Asteroid impacts that turned the atmosphere into a furnace. Magnetic pole reversals that stripped away our ozone layer and bathed the surface in deadly radiation. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning storms that could split mountains, and floods that could reshape continents. And somehow, our ancestors looked at all of that and said, you know what? We're going to not only survive this, we're going to thrive. They developed brains that could function through electromagnetic interference because Earth's magnetic field has been hiccuping for millions of years. They built bodies that could handle radiation doses that would kill most species because our sun has been throwing solar flares at us since before we crawled out of the oceans. Captain Hayes pilots the Defiant through the first electromagnetic storm. It's like flying through a living rainbow of death. The energy discharges paint Aurora across their viewports in colors that don't have names, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Most species will be paralyzed by the sensory overload, but Hayes just squints at her instruments and keeps flying. Chief Engineer Jackson is down in the engine room, performing what he cheerfully calls aggressive percussive maintenance. This is the ancient human art of hitting broken things with tools until they start working again. The electromagnetic pulses keep trying to scramble their systems, and Jackson keeps convincing them to behave with a combination of technical expertise and a very large wrench. Captain, Jackson's voice crackles through the intercom. The main computer just tried to calculate pi as purple. I persuaded otherwise. Meanwhile, Captain Parker's cargo hauler Persistence is dealing with gravitational anomalies that are literally bending space-time around them. These aren't the gentle gravitational fields you get around normal planets. These are gravitational shears caused by the dying star's unstable mass, creating pockets where space itself gets compressed and stretched like taffy. The Persistence wasn't built for this kind of stress. She's a cargo hauler, designed to move freight from point A to point B in a straight line through normal space. But Parker and his crew are pushing her through gravitational fields that are compressing space on one side of the ship while stretching it on the other. The hull groans and creaks like an old wooden ship in a storm, but she holds together through sheer stubbornness and some very creative engineering. Captain Moore's survey ship Endurance has perhaps the most dangerous job of all. She's navigating between solar flares that erupt from the red giant without warning, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a moon. These aren't the relatively gentle solar flares that Earth gets, where you might lose some satellite communications and see pretty lights in the sky. These are stellar tantrums that create their own gravitational waves and can rip apart the fabric of space itself. But Moore and her crew have spent years surveying dead systems and hostile environments. They've learned to read the subtle signs that predict when a star is about to burp up a continent-sized ball of plasma. They dance the Endurance between flares with the kind of precision that comes from a species that learned to navigate by reading wind patterns and ocean currents on a planet where the weather could kill you. The crazy thing is, this isn't even that unusual for humans. Every human ship captain has stories about flying through impossible conditions, because that's just what humans do. We've been sailing into storms, climbing impossible mountains, and generally telling the universe, "Hold my beer and watch this," since we figure out how to make fire. The three ships push deeper into the Kithara system, racing against time while space itself tries to kill them in increasingly creative ways. And somewhere ahead, 200 alien researchers are about to learn what it means when humans decide that impossible is just another word for Tuesday. When the three human ships finally reach the Kithara research station, what they find is a nightmare that would make most species turn around and fly home as fast as their engines could carry them. The station is literally coming apart before their eyes. Huge sections of hull peeling away like the skin of a rotten fruit as gravitational forces tear it to pieces. The research station was never meant to handle this kind of stress. It was built for the quiet, careful work of studying stellar phenomena from what the Kithara thought was a safe distance. The station is elegant, all flowing curves and crystalline observation domes, designed by a species that sees beauty in mathematics and builds their technology like works of art. But elegant doesn't mean tough, and right now tough is exactly what they need. Captain Hayes brings a Defiant in close, and immediately her pilot skills are put to the ultimate test. The gravitational field around the dying station is so unstable that space itself keeps shifting. 1 second the station is 100 meters away, the next it's 50, then suddenly it's 300 as space stretches and compresses around them. It's like trying to dock with a ship that keeps teleporting randomly while someone shakes the entire universe like a snow globe. The docking bays that should have made this rescue simple are completely destroyed. Massive chunks of twisted metal and crystalline debris float around the station like a deadly cloud. There's no way to dock normally, no way to connect the ships and transfer the researchers through nice, safe pressurized tubes. They're going to have to do this the hard way. And that's when engineer Jackson volunteers for what might be the single most dangerous spacewalk in human history. Jackson isn't some action hero from the movies. He's a middle-aged engineer from Detroit who joined the Merchant Marine because he liked fixing things and wanted to see the galaxy. He's got 3 kids back on Earth, a mortgage on a little house in the suburbs, and a workshop in his garage where he restores old combustion engines as a hobby. In other words, he's exactly the kind of ordinary person who does extraordinary things when somebody needs help. The plan he comes up with is pure human insanity wrapped in engineering brilliance. He's going to spacewalk directly from the Defiant to the research station, carrying portable life support units jury-rigged from mining equipment. Then he's going to go inside the station, find the alien researchers, and carry them one by one through raw space back to the human ships. Let's be clear about what raw space means in this situation. We're talking about an electromagnetic hellstorm that would kill most galactic species in seconds. The radiation levels are so high that looking at them directly would blind you. The gravitational distortions are literally tearing apart the fabric of reality, creating pockets where the laws of physics have decided to take a coffee break. But Jackson suits up anyway. The human spacesuit he's wearing wasn't designed for this kind of environment, so he improvises. He straps on extra radiation shielding made from lead plates intended for mining dangerous asteroids. He carries backup life support systems cannibalized from emergency equipment. His suit's computer is wrapped in electromagnetic shielding that normally protects mining sensors from solar storms. The Kithara researchers inside the station are in a panic. These beings look like living works of art, all flowing crystalline structures that catch and reflect light in impossible ways. They're beautiful, delicate, and completely helpless in their current situation. Their technology is sophisticated beyond human understanding. But it's all based on quantum processes that the electromagnetic storm has turned into expensive paperweights. They can't survive outside their station, not even for the few minutes it would take to transfer to human ships. Their crystalline bodies would shatter in the gravitational distortions and electromagnetic radiation would scramble their nervous systems instantly. They need to be carried in protective containers, like precious cargo that could break if you look at it wrong. Jackson cycles through the station's airlock, and immediately his radiation detector starts clicking so fast it sounds like an angry insect. The little badge on his chest that measures radiation exposure changes from green to yellow to orange in the first 5 minutes. By the time he's found the first group of researchers huddled in what's left of their laboratory, it's turned red. He doesn't care. Jackson starts loading Kithra researchers into the portable life support containers he's brought, talking to them in the calm, reassuring voice that humans use when everything's going wrong, but they need people to stay calm. The universal translator converts his words into their crystalline language, but somehow his tone comes through anyway. These alien beings who have never seen a human before start to trust this strange creature who appeared out of the storm to save them. One by one, Jackson carries them through space. Each trip is a journey through an electromagnetic hurricane while wearing jury-rigged equipment and carrying precious cargo that represents millions of years of evolution. His radiation badge turns black somewhere around the 50th researcher, meaning he's absorbed doses that should have killed him twice over. But humans build redundant medical systems because we learned long ago that disaster isn't just possible, it's inevitable. They did it. Against every law of physics, against every prediction of every advanced civilization in the galaxy, 3 human ships managed to pull off the impossible. All 200 Kithra researchers are now crammed into cargo holds that were never designed to carry passengers, breathing recycled air that tastes like metal and engine oil, wrapped in emergency blankets while the ship's life support systems work overtime to keep everyone alive. The Defiance cargo bay looks like the world's most unlikely refugee camp. Crystalline beings who normally live in carefully controlled environments are sitting on mining equipment, their translucent bodies reflecting the harsh industrial lighting. They should be terrified, but instead they're looking at their human rescuers with something that might be awe. Engineer Jackson, his face pale from radiation exposure, but still moving around checking on everyone, has become something of a legend among them in the space of a few hours. The Persistence is carrying even more refugees, her captain James Parker having somehow convinced his cargo handling systems to work as makeshift life support. His crew is handing out human emergency rations to aliens who have probably never seen solid food before, explaining through translators that the gray bars might not taste like much, but they'll keep you alive. Captain Rachel Moore's survey ship Endurance has been converted into a floating medical bay. The Kithra don't have the same biology as humans, but stress is stress in any language, and her medical officer is doing his best to keep everyone calm and healthy with equipment that was designed for human physiology. But they're not safe yet. Not even close. The 3 ships are still deep in the gravitational well of a dying red giant that's getting more unstable by the hour. Their engines are pushed past every safety limit, burning fuel at rates that would normally require a court-martial for whoever authorized it. The reactor temperatures are climbing into the red zone, and warning alarms are going off on every bridge. Captain Hayes pushes the Defiant harder than any ship was meant to be pushed. The hull is groaning under stresses that are literally bending the metal, and her chief engineer is basically living in the engine room now, fixing problems as fast as they appear. They're not just racing against time anymore. They're racing against the laws of physics themselves. The escape takes 6 hours of flying through conditions that would turn most spaceships into expensive scrap metal. But somehow, through a combination of human stubbornness, creative engineering, and what can only be described as sheer bloody-mindedness, all 3 ships make it to safe space. When the long-range communications finally come back online, and they can contact the outside galaxy, the first messages are from the Kithra government, frantic with worry about their missing researchers. The rescue becomes galactic news within hours, but not in the way you might expect. The Galactic Council doesn't throw them a parade or give them medals. Instead, They call an emergency session that lasts for 3 days, and the topic isn't, how do we honor these heroes? It's, what do we do about the humans? The debate transcripts, when they're finally released, make for fascinating reading. Representative after representative stands up to express concern about a species that apparently thinks flying into stellar death traps is routine. The Vordak delegate suggests that humans might be suffering from some kind of species-wide mental illness. The ethereals propose that Earth should be quarantined until humans can be taught proper risk assessment. The silicon-based species are particularly worried because the math doesn't work. According to every computer model, every probability calculation, every risk assessment algorithm in the galaxy, those 3 human ships should have been vaporized the moment they entered the Kithra system. The fact that they not only survived but completed the rescue suggests that humans either don't understand mathematics or don't care about it. Other species start whispering about the Deathworlders, the mad children of a planet so hostile that they think electromagnetic storms and gravitational anomalies are just Tuesday afternoon entertainment. Military advisors quietly suggest that any species crazy enough to fly into a dying star system to save strangers might be too dangerous to leave alone. What if they decide they don't like someone? What if they get angry? But out in the Outer Rim territories, in the forgotten colonies and failed expeditions that the galaxy's civilized species had written off as acceptable losses, a very different story starts spreading. It moves through space bars and freight stations, whisper between cargo pilots and survey crews who work the dangerous edges of known space. The story goes like this. When everyone else turns their back and declares your situation hopeless, when the Galactic Council runs the numbers and decides you're not worth saving, when the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy look at your problem and say impossible, there's still one option left. Call the humans. They're too stubborn to know when they're beaten, too crazy to know when they should quit, and too human to leave anyone behind. They'll show up in ships held together with spare parts and determination, crewed by ordinary people who do extraordinary things because someone needs help. The impossible had become routine. Somewhere in the dark between the stars, whenever someone screams for help into the void, the Deathworlders will come. Not because it makes sense, not because the odds are good, but because that's what humans do. And the galaxy would never be quite the same again.